I used to think danger had a face you could recognize, wild eyes, clenched fists, a voice that made you step back. But the night I called that locksmith, I learned that safety can look like a bald, tattooed stranger who refuses to leave your apartment at 2 a.m. in LA. His name was Jake. He had hands scarred from more than just fixing locks. And when he looked at me, I felt seen in a way that terrified me. He said I wasn't safe. I should have asked him to go. Instead, I made coffee. And somewhere between his second cup and sunrise, I realized the most dangerous thing in that room wasn't him. It was the way I'd already decided to trust him. You will feel so many emotions in this story of second chances and forbidden love. Please support us by clicking subscribe to the channel. I used to think I could tell when something bad was coming. A prickle on the back of my neck, a tightness in my chest. Some kind of warning system built into my body after 26 years of learning to read rooms and avoid trouble. But the night Jake Brennan showed up at my door, I felt nothing but exhaustion. It was past midnight. I'd just finished a double shift at Ruby's Diner, my feet screaming in those cheap non-slip shoes, grease still clinging to my hair despite the ponytail. My key slid into the lock like it had 1,000 times before, but this time it just stopped. Stuck. Jammed halfway, refusing to turn either direction. I jiggled it, cursed at it, pulled and pushed until my fingers hurt. The hallway smelled like curry and cigarettes. Mrs. Chen's television blared through her door. Down the hall, someone was having the same fight they'd been having for 3 months. I was alone in the worst way, surrounded by people who wouldn't help me even if I screamed. So I scrolled through Google on my cracked phone screen, past 5 locksmiths who didn't answer, until I found one that did. Jake's locksmith. 24 hours. His voice came through clear and calm, almost too calm, like someone who'd learned to control every word that left his mouth. Professional. Careful. I told him the address. He said, 20 minutes, and hung up before I could ask about the price. I sat on the hallway floor and waited, counted the stains on the carpet, listened to the fight down the hall reach its crescendo and fade, checked my bank account and winced. When the knock finally came, I scrambled to my feet, ready to pay whatever it cost just to get inside and collapse. But when I opened the stairwell door, I froze. He was tall. That was the first thing. 6'3", maybe more, broad-shouldered in a way that made the narrow hallway feel smaller. White guy, completely bald, with a work jacket that couldn't quite hide the ink crawling up his neck and down his arms. Tattoos everywhere, not the decorative kind people get at trendy parlors, but the kind that tell stories. Prison stories. I'd seen enough crime documentaries to recognize the style. Dark ink, rough lines, numbers on his forearm that might have been a date or a cell block. His face was all angles, sharp jaw, flat, watchful eyes that seemed to catalog everything about me in 2 seconds. My waitress uniform, my exhausted posture, the fact that I was alone. He carried a toolbox in one scarred hand. "You, Sarah?" he asked. "Yeah." "You're the locksmith?" "Yeah." That was it. No small talk, no reassuring smile. He just moved past me, knelt in front of my door, and studied the lock like it was a puzzle only he could solve. His hands worked with a precision that seemed almost too practiced. Scarred knuckles, calluses, the kind of hands that had done more than fix locks. I stood there watching him, trying not to stare at the tattoo peeking out from under his collar. A bird, maybe? Or a name? I couldn't tell. He had me back inside in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. The whole time, he didn't say a word. Just worked in silence, made some kind of adjustment with a tool I didn't recognize, and suddenly the lock turned smooth as butter. "How much do I owe you?" I asked, already reaching for my wallet. He stood up, shook his head, waved it off like I'd offered him spare change. "Don't worry about it. I have to pay you something. You work at Ruby's, right? I've seen you there. You work hard. Consider it handled." Before I could argue, he walked past me into my apartment. Not aggressive, not threatening. Just walked in like he'd been invited, pulled out one of my kitchen chairs, and sat down. My heart started hammering. Every self-defense article I'd ever read screamed at me to run. But something about the way he sat there, hands folded on the table, shoulders relaxed, eyes steady, made me stay. "You're not safe here," he said. No preamble, no smile, just 4 words that made my stomach flip. I should have called the police. Should have demanded he leave. Should have done anything except what I actually did, which was stand there in my tiny kitchen and ask, why? He looked at me then. Really looked at me. Not the way men at the diner looked, with hunger or dismissal or both. This was different. Like he could see something I couldn't. Like he knew my future and it wasn't good. Because I've been watching, he said quietly. And you're not the only one. The silence that followed felt like falling. Outside, a siren wailed past. Mrs. Chen's TV droned on. The couple down the hall had started fighting again. But inside my apartment, everything had gone still. Jake leaned back in that chair, arms crossed over his chest, tattoos rippling with the movement. His eyes never left mine. There's a guy, he continued. Comes into the diner where you work. Leaves you notes under his plate. Watches you through the window when you get off shift. You know the one I'm talking about? Marcus. My blood went cold. How do you know that? Because I've been watching him, Jake said. And tonight he followed you home. I didn't sleep that night. Jake left around 3 a.m, but only after checking every window, testing every lock, and writing his number on a scrap of paper he left on my counter. Call me if anything feels wrong, he'd said. Not if something happens. If anything feels wrong. Like he understood that danger starts as a feeling before it becomes a fact. I kept seeing Marcus's face. The way he'd smile at me over his coffee. The notes he'd leave, you have a beautiful smile, and I'd love to take you to dinner sometime. And, most recently, I know where you live now. I'd thrown that one away. Told myself he was just lonely, just awkward, just harmless. But Jake's words echoed in my head. He followed you home. The next morning, I walked to the bus stop 3 blocks from my apartment. The sun was barely up, the street still gray and empty. I clutched my purse against my chest and kept my keys threaded between my fingers the way they teach you in self-defense videos that never actually prepare you for anything. And there he was. Jake. Leaning against the lamppost across the street, hands in his jacket pockets, bald head catching the early light. He didn't wave, didn't smile, just stood there watching. When the bus pulled up, he nodded once and walked away. It happened again 2 days later. I was leaving the convenience store where I bought my morning coffee, and he was outside. Not close, not threatening, just present. A shadow I couldn't shake. I should have been scared. Every reasonable instinct said I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt something closer to relief, like having a guard dog I didn't ask for but secretly wanted. You're following me, I said the 3rd time I saw him, outside the laundromat on Saturday afternoon. Keeping an eye out, he corrected. What's the difference? One's about control, the other's about protection. He helped me carry my laundry basket back to my apartment without asking. Fixed the dryer door that had been sticking for weeks. Showed me how to check the peephole from an angle so I could see if someone was standing just out of sight. You learned that in prison? I asked before I could stop myself. He didn't flinch. Yeah. How long were you in? 8 years. Huntsville. The name hung in the air between us. Huntsville, maximum security, the kind of place they made documentaries about. I swallowed hard. What did you do? Something stupid when I was 23. Paid for it. Got out 6 months ago. He didn't elaborate. I didn't push. But I noticed things after that. The way he never talked about family except once mentioning a sister. The way he avoided certain questions with the practiced ease of someone who'd been interrogated. The scars on his knuckles. The tattoo on his ribs I glimpsed when he reached up to fix my kitchen cabinet. Names or dates or something he'd wanted to remember. Linda noticed too. She cornered me during my break at the diner. Her phone already out. That guy who's always around you. Do you know him? He's a friend. I lied. Sarah. She turned her phone toward me. My cousin's a corrections officer at Huntsville. I asked him to look into it. The screen showed a mugshot, Jake Brennan, younger, harder, eyes that held nothing but anger. The article underneath. 3 men rob gas station, 1 fires weapon, no injuries. Armed robbery, conspiracy, weapons charges. My hands went cold. He did 8 years, Linda whispered. Sarah, you need to be careful. He hasn't done anything wrong. Yet. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. Why was he always there? Why did he care so much about some waitress he barely knew? What did he want? I looked out the diner window. Jake was across the street, leaning against a bus stop, coffee in hand, like he knew we were talking about him, like he was waiting for me to make a choice. That night, Marcus came back. I was closing up, taking out trash bags to the dumpster behind the diner. The alley was dark, lit only by one flickering streetlight. I heard footsteps behind me and turned. Marcus stood there, swaying slightly, drunk. His eyes unfocused, but his smile sharp. "Sarah." He said my name like he owned it. "You've been avoiding me." "I'm working, Marcus." "You should go home." "I've been thinking about you." "About us." "There is no us." He stepped closer. I stepped back. My spine hit the brick wall. "You're always so polite at work," he slurred. "But I see you with him. That bald guy. What's he got that I don't?" "Marcus, please." "I've been patient. I've been nice. I leave you tips. I leave you notes. And you just ignore me like I'm nothing." A voice cut through the darkness. Cold, flat, absolutely certain. "Walk away right now, man." Jake stepped out of the shadows at the end of the alley. He didn't run, didn't shout. Just walked forward with the slow, deliberate movement of someone who didn't need to hurry because he knew exactly how this would end. Marcus turned, saw him. And something shifted in Marcus's face. Recognition, maybe, or instinct. The kind of primal understanding that happens when prey realizes it's cornered something worse than itself. "This doesn't concern you," Marcus tried. Jake stopped 3 feet away, arms loose at his sides, eyes flat and cold as winter. "Walk away," he repeated. "Right now, while you still can." Marcus looked at me, looked at Jake, made some kind of calculation. Then he stumbled backward, muttering something about "crazy bitch" and "not worth it," and disappeared down the alley. I stood there shaking, not from fear of Marcus. From what I'd just seen, Jake had control so absolute it didn't need violence. He'd ended a threat with 5 words and a look. And I realized then what terrified me most wasn't what he'd done in his past. It was how easily he could do it again. "Sarah," he said quietly. "You okay?" I nodded. Couldn't speak. He walked me to my car, waited until I was inside with the doors locked. But before I could drive away, he leaned down to my window. "Marcus has friends," he said. "And now they know I'm watching you. This isn't over." He was right. 3 days later, I came out to find my tires slashed, all 4 of them, and tucked under my windshield wiper, a note written in thick black marker. "Tell your boyfriend to back off or we'll make you back off." The police took 40 minutes to arrive. Officer Ramirez looked at my tires, looked at the note, and asked if I had any enemies. I almost laughed. Enemies. Like I was important enough to have enemies. "There's a guy," I started. "He's been harassing me at work." "Name?" "Marcus. Marcus Webb. He comes into the diner where I work and—" "Has he threatened you directly?" "He left notes. Followed me home." "But has he verbally threatened you? Physically touched you?" I thought about that night in the alley. About how close he'd gotten. About the smell of whiskey on his breath and the way he'd said my name. Not exactly. Officer Ramirez closed his notebook. "Ma'am, without direct threats or physical evidence linking this Marcus to the vandalism, there's not much we can do. File a report. Get cameras if you can afford them. And maybe park in better lit areas." He left. I stood there in the parking lot, staring at my ruined tires, and felt something break inside me. Not fear. Rage, the kind that makes your hands shake and your vision narrow. I called Jake. He arrived in 15 minutes, looked at the tires, read the note. His jaw tightened. And for the first time since I'd met him, I saw something crack in that careful control. "I can fix this," he said quietly. "How?" "My way." "What does that mean?" He looked at me then. Really looked at me. And I saw the war happening behind those eyes. The calculation, the weighing of cost versus consequence. It means I know people who can make Marcus and his friends understand they need to disappear. It means I can solve this problem permanently. But it also means doing things that could send me back to prison. So you need to decide right now if you want me to. No. The word came out harder than I intended. No. I don't want you going back to prison for me. There has to be another way. Sarah? Who are you? I demanded. Really? Because everyone keeps warning me about you, and I keep defending you, and I don't even know what I'm defending. Silence. A car passed on the street. Someone's dog barked in the distance. Jake stood there in the parking lot under the sodium lights, tattooed and scarred and completely still. My apartment's 2 blocks from here, he finally said. Come with me. I'll tell you everything. His place was exactly what I expected. Studio apartment above a pawn shop. Mattress on the floor, microwave on a card table, 1 chair, no TV, just a laptop, a stack of library books, and a framed photograph of a young woman who had Jake's eyes. My sister, he said, following my gaze. Rachel? She's 21 now, studying nursing at community college. He sat on the floor, back against the wall. I took the chair, and he told me I was 23, working construction, trying to help my mom pay Rachel's medical bills. She needed surgery. Insurance wouldn't cover it. We were drowning. Then 2 guys I worked with said they had a plan. Easy money. Quick job. I'd just drive. That's all. He stared at his hands. It was supposed to be simple. In and out. But one of them panicked, pulled a gun, fired a shot into the ceiling. The clerk, this woman named Maria, she dropped to the floor and started crying. I told them we were leaving, dragged them out, drove away. But you got caught. 3 blocks away. Cop had been parked across the street the whole time. My friends took plea deals, testified against me in exchange for reduced sentences. I refused to cooperate, refused to name anyone else involved. The prosecutor called me the ringleader, said I was a danger to society. I got 8 years. They got 18 months. I tried to process this. Why didn't you take the deal? Because Maria, the clerk, she wrote a letter. Said I was the one who stopped it from getting worse. Said I protected her. The prosecutor tried to keep it out of evidence. But it mattered to me. I wasn't going to become the monster they said I was by destroying other people to save myself. So you went to prison. Yeah. For 8 years. Yeah. He looked up at me. Those flat, careful eyes suddenly full of something raw. I'm not proud of who I became in there, Sarah. I fought, made deals, did things to survive that I'll never talk about, but I also got my GED, took college courses, worked in the prison library, read everything I could about locksmithing and small engine repair, learned skills that would give me a chance when I got out. And Rachel? Mom died my 5th year in heart attack. Rachel was 16, went to foster care. But she didn't give up. Got herself through high school, applied to college. Now she's thriving. And she's the only person besides you who talks to me like I'm still human. The silence stretched. I looked at this man, this ex-convict sitting on the floor of his bare apartment, and saw him clearly for the first time. Not dangerous, not a threat. Just someone who'd made one catastrophic choice and spent 8 years paying for it. Someone who'd learned that survival meant becoming harder than you wanted to be. Someone who'd rebuilt himself from nothing and was still rebuilding. Why do you care about me? I asked. You don't even know me. Because I know what it's like when nobody helps, he said simply. I know what it's like to be scared and alone and have everyone tell you it's your own fault. When I saw Marcus watching you, I saw every predator I've ever known. And I thought, maybe this time I can stop it before it gets worse. I believed him. God help me. I believed every word. I need to show you something, I said, pulling out my phone. I'd Googled him after Linda showed me that mugshot. Found articles, court records, but I'd also found something else. I showed him Maria's letter to the parole board. The full version, the one where she said, Jake Brennan saved my life that night. He could have let his friends hurt me. Instead, he risked everything to get them out of that store. He made a terrible mistake, but he's not a terrible person. Jake stared at the screen. His hands started shaking. I've never seen the full letter, he whispered. They only read me parts during the parole hearing. She fought for you, I said, even when nobody else did. She didn't have to do that. Neither do you. But here you are. He looked up at me, and something shifted in that bare apartment. Some invisible wall came down. He wasn't just an ex-con. I wasn't just some waitress he was protecting. We were two people who'd been knocked down by life and were still figuring out how to stand. Sarah, he said slowly, if you want me to leave you alone, I will. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. But if you want my help dealing with Marcus, real help, legal help, then I need you to trust me. Can you do that? I thought about the police officer who'd dismissed me, about Marcus's friends who'd slashed my tires, about every time I'd felt small and powerless and afraid. Yes, I said. Jake nodded, started to say something. Then his phone rang. He looked at the screen. His face went pale. Who is it? I asked. My parole officer, he said quietly. At 10 p.m. On a Friday? That's never good. He answered, listened, said yes, sir, 3 times, hung up. What is it? Jake's voice was barely above a whisper. Someone called in a complaint. Said I've been stalking and harassing a woman. Said I threatened a man in an alley behind Ruby's diner. They're investigating. If they find evidence I violated my parole terms. He didn't finish. Didn't have to. 1 complaint, 1 investigation, and Jake could lose everything he'd spent 6 months rebuilding. Marcus, I breathed. Or his friends. They're smarter than I thought. Jake stood up, paced his tiny apartment, and I saw real fear on his face for the first time. I have a meeting with my PO Monday morning, he said. If he thinks I'm falling back into criminal behavior, he can send me back. No trial, no appeal, just a violation hearing, and I'm done. My phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. Hope your boyfriend enjoyed his freedom while it lasted. I didn't go home that night. Couldn't. The idea of sitting alone in my apartment, waiting for Marcus or his friends to make their next move, made my skin crawl. So I stayed. Slept on Jake's floor with a blanket he pulled from his closet, while he sat in that single chair watching the door like he expected it to burst open any second. You don't have to stay up, I whispered around 2 a.m. Can't sleep anyway. Jake? I've spent 8 years learning how to stay alert. Old habits. But it wasn't just habit. I could see it in the rigid line of his shoulders, the way his eyes tracked every sound from the street below. He was calculating, planning, trying to figure out how to protect me without destroying himself in the process. When morning came, he made coffee in his microwave. Instant, black, terrible, and we sat on his floor drinking it in silence. I'm going with you, I said, to meet your parole officer. Sarah. I'm the one he thinks you're harassing. So I'll tell him the truth, that you've been helping me, that Marcus is the problem, not you. It won't matter. They hear what they want to hear. Ex-con hangs around a woman, threatens someone in an alley. The story writes itself. Then we change the story. He looked at me like I'd suggested we rob a bank. How? I don't know yet, but I'm not letting you go back to prison because you tried to help me. Something shifted in his face then. The hardness cracked. Just for a second, long enough for me to see the 23-year-old kid who'd made one bad choice and paid for it with 8 years of his life. Why are you doing this? He asked quietly. Because you showed up when nobody else did. Over the next 2 days, Jake became part of my life in a way that felt both terrifying and necessary. He walked me to work, picked me up after my shifts, fixed the cabinet door in my apartment that had been hanging crooked for months, taught me how to check if someone had tried to pick my lock, tiny scratches around the keyhole, metal shavings on the ground. You learn to notice everything inside, he explained. Who walks differently? Who's watching who? What sounds mean danger? It's how you survive. I watched him work. The careful precision of his hands. The way he approached every task like a puzzle that required absolute focus. When he fixed my leaky faucet, he didn't just tighten something and leave. He took apart the whole assembly, cleaned every piece, explained what had been wrong. You don't half-ass things, I observed. Can't afford to. One mistake, and people assume it's because I'm an ex-con. That I'm unreliable, dangerous, so everything I do has to be perfect. That sounds exhausting. It is. On Sunday afternoon, his parole officer stopped by the building. I watched through Jake's window as they talked on the sidewalk below. The officer, a tired-looking man in his 50s with a clipboard, asked questions. Jake answered with his hands in his pockets. Shoulders relaxed. The picture of compliance. But I could see the tension in his jaw. The way he chose every word carefully. When the officer finally left, Jake came back upstairs and sat on his mattress with his head in his hands. He wants to know everywhere I've been for the past 2 weeks, everyone I've talked to, everything I've done. He's building a case. Then we'll give him one that shows the truth. Sarah, you don't understand how this works. They don't want the truth. They want reasons to send me back. The system isn't designed for rehabilitation. It's designed for control. I sat next to him. Our shoulders touched. And for the first time, I took his hand. His scarred, calloused, careful hand. Then we fight it together. He looked at our joined hands like he couldn't quite believe they were real. Nobody's ever fought for me before, he said. Except Rachel. And Maria, I guess. But Maria was just being a good person. Rachel's my sister. She has to. But you don't owe me anything. Maybe I'm just being a good person too. You're more than that. The words hung in the air, heavy, loaded, full of things neither of us was ready to say. That night, he told me about prison. Not the violence or the fear. He'd already said he'd never talk about that. But the small things. The way time moved differently when you had nothing but time. How he'd read every book in the prison library twice. How he'd taught himself locksmithing from a manual someone left behind. How he'd made a promise to himself that if he ever got out, he'd become someone his sister could be proud of. Is she? I asked. Proud of you? She says she is. But I see the way she looks at me sometimes. Like she's waiting for me to mess up. To prove everyone right. I don't think that's what she's waiting for. What do you think she's waiting for? For you to believe you deserve a second chance? Jake was quiet for a long time. Then he pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. Him and Rachel, taken a month after his release. She was hugging him, grinning at the camera. He looked uncomfortable. Stiff, like he'd forgotten how to accept affection. She made me take this, he said. Said she wanted proof that I was real. That I was actually out. That she hadn't imagined it. You look scared. I was, still am. Every day I wake up and think, what if I mess up? What if I say the wrong thing or make the wrong choice and end up back inside? What if this is all just temporary? What if it's not? He looked at me. And something in his expression cracked open. Not the careful control. Not the practiced restraint. Just raw, honest fear. I don't know how to trust that, he admitted. Then let me trust it for you, until you can. He set the phone down. Turned to face me fully. And for the first time since we'd met, Jake Brennan smiled. Really smiled. Not the careful, measured expression he showed the world, but something genuine and unguarded and heartbreaking. You're insane, you know that. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of being scared. That makes 2 of us. We sat there in his bare apartment, surrounded by nothing but survival and hope, and I thought, this is what redemption looks like. Not grand gestures or dramatic transformations. Just 2 broken people choosing to believe they deserve something better. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and went completely still. What is it? Text from a number I don't recognize. He showed me. The message was brief. Brutal. Remember Tommy Vega? He just got out, and he knows where you live. Jake's hands started shaking. Who's Tommy Vega? I asked. When Jake looked up, his face had gone pale. My cellmate, he whispered, for 6 years, and the most dangerous man I've ever known. Tommy Vega showed up on Tuesday afternoon. I was at Jake's apartment when the knock came. 3 sharp raps that made Jake's whole body go rigid. He looked through the peephole and I watched every muscle in his jaw tighten. Stay in the bathroom, he said quietly. Don't come out until I tell you. Jake, please, Sarah. Trust me. I'd never heard fear in his voice before. Not when he faced down Marcus. Not when his parole officer called, but I heard it now. So I went. From behind the bathroom door, I could hear everything. The door opening, a voice, smooth, confident, dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with volume. Brennan. Looking good, man. Freedom suits you. Tommy. What are you doing here? That's how you greet an old friend. 6 years we spent in that cell together. Thought you'd be happier to see me. We're not friends. A laugh. Cold. Amused. Sure we are. I protected you in there. Kept the Aryan Brotherhood off your back when they found out you wouldn't join up. Taught you how to survive. You owe me. I don't owe you anything. See? That's where you're wrong. Footsteps. Someone walking into the apartment uninvited. I pressed my ear against the door. Nice place you got here. Real minimalist. You always were the smart one. Keep your head down. Follow the rules. Be a good boy for the parole board. But I know you, Jake. I know what you're capable of when you need to be. I'm not that person anymore. Nobody changes? Not really. You just learn to hide it better. And speaking of hiding, you got a girl in here. I can smell perfume. My heart stopped. There's nobody here. Don't lie to me, brother. I've been watching. Saw you with that pretty waitress. Sarah, right? From Ruby's Diner. Nice girl. Be a shame if something happened to her. The temperature in the room dropped. Tommy, leave her out of this. Then help me with one thing. One job. Easy money, just like old times. Except this time we're smarter. Older. We know how to do it right. I'm done with that life. You're never done. Not with a record like ours. You think society's gonna let you just walk away, get a normal job, have a normal girl? They'll never see you as anything but a convict. So why not act like one and get paid for it? Get out. Think about it. I'll give you 48 hours because we're friends. But Jake, if you say no, I'll have to get creative about convincing you. And you know how creative I can be. The door closed. Footsteps faded down the stairs. I waited in the bathroom, barely breathing, until Jake opened the door. He looked 10 years older. Tell me everything, I said. We sat on his mattress and he told me about Tommy Vega, about how Tommy had run the prison drug trade from inside his cell, about how he'd protected Jake in exchange for loyalty, about the violence Tommy was capable of, not the hot, angry kind, but the cold, calculated kind that made even guards nervous. He's been out for 3 days, Jake said, which means he's already planning something. And now he knows about you. What does he want you to do? Probably a robbery. Maybe worse. Tommy doesn't think small. He's got connections outside, people who owe him favors. He'll want to make a statement, show everyone he's still dangerous. And if you say no, Jake looked at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen before. Not fear, not anger, absolute certainty. He'll come after you to force my hand. The words settled like stones in my stomach. Then we go to the police. And tell them what? That my ex-cellmate threatened me? They'll say it's a parole violation for associating with known criminals. They'll send me back before Tommy can blink. Then what do? I don't know yet. But things got worse before we could figure it out. That night, I came home from my shift to find my apartment window smashed. Not just broken, completely destroyed, glass everywhere. And sitting on my kitchen table, on top of the shards, was a brick with a note tied to it. We know where you sleep. I called Jake. He was there in 5 minutes. Looked at the window, read the note. His face went absolutely blank. Pack a bag, he said. You're not staying here tonight. Where am I supposed to go? My place. It's safer. I can watch the door. Jake, I can't just... Sarah. He turned to face me. Marcus's friends did this. They're escalating. And if Tommy finds out you're vulnerable, he'll use that. You need to be somewhere I can protect you. I wanted to argue. Wanted to insist I could handle this myself. But I looked at that broken window, at the glass glittering on my floor like broken promises, and I packed a bag. For 3 days, I lived out of Jake's apartment, slept on his mattress while he took the floor, went to work with him walking 2 steps behind me, came home to find him checking the locks, scanning the street, planning for threats I couldn't even imagine. Linda pulled me aside on the 3rd day. Sarah, honey, you need to think about what you're doing. I'm being safe. You're living with an ex-con who's got dangerous people circling him. That's not safe. That's insane. He's protecting me. Or he's the reason you need protection in the first place. Did you think about that? I had, constantly, late at night when I couldn't sleep, listening to Jake's careful breathing from the floor. I'd wonder if Linda was right. If I was the idiot who'd invited danger into her life by trusting the wrong person. But then I'd remember the way Jake had sat with me when I was scared. The way he'd fixed things without being asked. The way he'd told me the truth about his past when he could have lied. And I'd think, Maybe danger isn't always what you expect. Maybe sometimes the safest place is next to someone who knows what danger looks like and will do anything to keep it away from you. On the fourth night, Tommy called Jake's phone. Put it on speaker without asking. "Time's up, brother. You in or out?" "I'm out." "Wrong answer." "See, I did some research on your girl, Sarah. She's got a mom in Phoenix, sister in Denver, niece who's 7 years old, pretty kid. Would hate for anything to happen to her family because you couldn't help an old friend." My blood turned to ice. "Tommy, you've got until Friday night to change your mind. Meet me at the warehouse on 5th and Archer at midnight. Come alone, bring your tools, and Jake, if you tell anyone, cops, parole officer, anyone, I'll make sure Sarah loses everyone she loves. Starting with you." The line went dead. Jake sat there staring at his phone, and I watched him do the same calculation I'd seen before, the weighing of cost versus consequence. The line between who he was and who he used to be. "You're not going," I said. "If I don't, he'll hurt your family. You don't know that. He's bluffing." Tommy Vega doesn't bluff. He once broke a man's hands because the guy owed him 3 cigarettes. What do you think he'll do if I cross him? Then we go to the police. Tell them everything. And I go back to prison for associating with Tommy. For being in situations that look like I'm planning criminal activity. Even if we stop Tommy, I lose. Don't you see? This is the trap. There's no way out that doesn't destroy me. I looked at this man I'd known for barely 3 weeks. This man who'd shown up to fix my lock and somehow become the only person I trusted. And I made a decision. Then we don't play by his rules, I said. We find another way. There is no other way. There's always another way. You told me prison taught you how to survive. So survive this. Outsmart him. Use what you know. Sarah, you said Tommy's smart. Fine. But you're smarter. You spent 6 years learning how he thinks. Use that. Jake looked at me like I'd just handed him a weapon he'd forgotten he had. You're talking about going after Tommy Vega. Do you understand how dangerous that is? More dangerous than doing nothing? Yes. Infinitely more dangerous. Good, I said. Then he won't see it coming. For the first time in days, something like hope flickered in Jake's eyes. But before he could respond, his phone buzzed again. Another text. Another unknown number. Marcus's crew is planning something big. They know where Sarah works. They know her schedule. Friday night after closing. If you want to protect her, you help me first. Otherwise, I tell them exactly when to strike. Tommy. Jake's hands were shaking. He's forcing my hand, he whispered. If I don't help him rob whatever he's planning to rob, he'll tell Marcus's friends exactly when you're most vulnerable. He's giving me an impossible choice. Then we remove the choice, I said. We stop Marcus's crew and Tommy at the same time. Sarah, that's insane. So is sitting here waiting for everyone to hurt us. I'm done being a victim, Jake. Are you? He stared at me, and I saw the moment something shifted. Not surrender, not acceptance, decision. We'd need help, he said slowly. Someone who knows the system. Someone who can move without being obvious. Who? Jake pulled up a contact in his phone. A name I didn't recognize. A guard from Huntsville, he said. Guy named Rodriguez. He went straight after 15 years. Now he works private security. He helped me get my locksmith license. Told me if I ever needed something off the books, to call. Will he help? Only one way to find out. He dialed. Waited. And when someone answered, Jake said 5 words that changed everything. Rodriguez, I need a favor. Rodriguez showed up the next morning at a diner 30 miles outside the city. I'd insisted on coming, despite Jake's protests. If we were doing this, whatever this was, I needed to be part of it. Not just the person being protected, the person doing the protecting. Rodriguez was everything Jake wasn't. Heavyset, gray hair, warm eyes that had seen terrible things but chose kindness anyway. He ordered coffee, looked at both of us, and said, Jake Brennan asking for help. Never thought I'd see the day. Desperate times. Tell me. Jake laid it out. Marcus and his crew. Tommy Vega's demands. The impossible choice. The timeline. Rodriguez listened without interrupting, his cop face firmly in place. When Jake finished, Rodriguez turned to me. And you? You're okay with all this? I'm okay with not being a victim anymore. That's not what I asked. I asked if you're okay with Jake potentially violating his parole, with getting involved in something that could send him back to Huntsville, with the fact that helping you might cost him everything he's rebuilt. The question hung there, heavy, honest. No, I admitted. I'm not okay with it, but I'm also not okay with doing nothing while everyone around me gets hurt. So if there's a way to stop this without destroying Jake's life, that's what we're doing. Rodriguez smiled. It was sad and knowing. You love him. I barely know him. That's not an answer. I looked at Jake, at his scarred hands wrapped around his coffee cup, at the tension in his shoulders, at the careful way he held himself. Like one wrong move would shatter everything. Yeah, I said quietly. I think I do. Jake's eyes found mine, and something unspoken passed between us. Something that felt like a promise and a confession all at once. Rodriguez pulled out a notebook. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to gather evidence on Marcus's crew. Phone records, surveillance footage, outstanding warrants, parole violations. Anything that gives the cops a legitimate reason to pick them up before Friday. And we're going to do it legal. No breaking and entering. No violence. Just good old-fashioned investigation. And Tommy? Jake asked. Tommy's trickier. He's been out 3 days. Hasn't violated parole yet. But if we can prove he's planning a robbery, his PO will revoke him immediately. The question is, how do we prove it without you getting caught in the middle? I record the conversation, Jake said slowly. When I meet him Friday, get him to explain the job, confess to threatening Sarah's family. Then we turn it over. That could work. But it also puts you in danger. If Tommy searches you, finds a wire, he won't search me. He thinks I'm desperate. Thinks he's got me cornered. He'll be cocky. Confident. You're betting your life on that. I've bet on worse. Rodriguez looked at me. And you? You're okay with this plan? Do I have a choice? There's always a choice. You could walk away. Let Jake handle this alone. Protect yourself. I'm not walking away. Even if it means watching him walk into a warehouse with a violent ex-con and a wire hidden in his jacket. Especially then. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Then he pulled out a card and slid it across the table. My number. You call me if anything goes wrong. Anything. And Jake, you're going to need to let your parole officer know what's happening. Get ahead of this before Tommy or Marcus's crew makes it look like you're the problem. My PO already thinks I'm falling back into old patterns. Then prove him wrong. Show him you're cooperating. That you're trying to stop crime, not commit it. It's a risk, but it's better than him finding out after the fact. We spent the next 3 days moving like chess pieces. Rodriguez used his private security connections to pull surveillance footage from businesses near the diner. Found Marcus's crew on camera slashing my tires. Found text messages between them planning worse. Built a case that even lazy cops couldn't ignore. I went through my phone records, found every threatening message, every weird call, every time Marcus had contacted me after I'd asked him to stop, built my own case of harassment and stalking. And Jake met with his parole officer and told him everything. Showed him the text from Tommy, explained about Marcus, laid out the whole situation with the kind of calm, careful honesty that came from 8 years of learning exactly how to talk to authority. Officer Delgado, Jake's PO, listened, took notes, and finally said, "You're walking a very thin line, Brennan. If this goes sideways, I can't protect you. I know. But if you pull this off, if you help us stop an ex-con from committing new crimes and protect a civilian in the process, that's the kind of thing that looks good in parole reviews. I'm not doing it for parole reviews. I know. That's why I'm letting you do it at all." Thursday night, Rodriguez brought the wire, tiny, professional, the kind that recorded everything with crystal clarity. He showed Jake how to wear it, how to activate it, how to stay calm if things went wrong. "Remember," he said, "your job is to get Tommy talking, get him to confess, then get out. Don't be a hero. Don't try to stop him yourself. Just gather evidence and walk away. And if he wants me to participate, to actually help with the robbery, you stall. Say you need more details. Buy time until we can move in." That night, I stayed at Jake's apartment. Neither of us slept. We just lay on his mattress, side by side, staring at the ceiling. "I'm scared," I admitted. Me too. What if something goes wrong? Then Rodriguez calls the cops. Tommy gets arrested, and I probably go back to prison for violating parole by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's not funny. I'm not joking. I rolled over to face him. In the darkness, I could barely see his features, just the outline of his face, the glint of his eyes. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "Really? You could just leave, change cities, start over somewhere Tommy and Marcus can't find you." "Because I spent 8 years running from who I was. I'm done running. Even if it costs you everything." "Sarah." He reached out, found my hand in the darkness. "You're not everything. You're the first thing I've had worth fighting for since I got out. If I lose you because I was too afraid to fight, then what was the point of any of it?" I kissed him then. Finally. Fully. With all the fear and hope and desperate love I'd been carrying since the night he refused to leave my apartment. He kissed me back like a drowning man finding air. When we broke apart, he pressed his forehead against mine. "Whatever happens tomorrow," he whispered, "I need you to know I don't regret any of this. Don't talk like you're saying goodbye. I'm not. I'm saying, if this is what redemption feels like, I'll take it. Even if it only lasts one more day." Friday came too fast. Jake put on the wire. Met Rodriguez one more time to test it. Then he looked at me standing in his apartment, trying not to cry, and said, "Stay here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but Rodriguez or the cops. Jake. Promise me. I promise." He kissed me once more. Quick. Desperate. Then he left. I sat in that apartment for 6 hours, watching the clock, counting minutes. Rodriguez had given me a phone, burner, untraceable, and said he'd text me updates. But the phone stayed silent. At 11:30, it finally buzzed. "He's heading to the warehouse. Stand by." At 11:45, "Tommy's there. 2 other guys with him. Unknown if they're armed." At midnight, "Jake's inside. Wire is active. We're listening." And then nothing. 15 minutes of silence that felt like years. At 12:17, the phone rang. Rodriguez's voice, tight and urgent. "Sarah, we have a problem." My heart stopped. What kind of problem? Marcus's crew just showed up at the warehouse. They're not supposed to be there, and we just heard gunshots. I was out the door before Rodriguez finished speaking. Grabbed Jake's spare keys, took the stairs 3 at a time, hit the street running. "Sarah, no!" Rodriguez's voice crackled through the phone. "Stay where you are. We've got units on the way." "How long?" 10 minutes. Maybe 15. He could be dead in 15 minutes. If you go in there, you could be dead too. "Sarah, listen to me." I hung up, shoved the phone in my pocket, started running. The warehouse was 40 blocks away. Too far to run, too far to think. But I wasn't thinking anymore. I was moving on pure instinct. The kind that overrides common sense and self-preservation. The kind that says, the person you love is in danger and nothing else matters. I flagged down a cab, threw $40 at the driver. 5th and Archer. Fast. Lady. That's not a good neighborhood. I know. Drive. We made it in 8 minutes. I could hear sirens in the distance. Police responding to the shots fired call. But they weren't here yet. The warehouse loomed dark and abandoned. Broken windows, graffiti, the kind of place where bad things happened and nobody asked questions. I should have waited, should have let the cops handle it, should have trusted that Rodriguez and his team knew what they were doing. Instead, I walked through the broken fence and toward the side entrance. The door was ajar. Inside, I could hear voices, shouting, the sharp metallic sound of something being knocked over. I pressed myself against the wall and listened. Tommy's voice, smooth and dangerous. "I told you to come alone, Jake." I did come alone. Then who the hell are these guys? Marcus's voice. Drunk? Angry. "That's the guy. The bald freak who's been protecting my girl. Told you we'd find him." My blood turned to ice. "Your girl?" Tommy laughed. "Brother, I think you're confused. That waitress belongs to Brennan here. Isn't that right, Jake?" Silence. "See, Jake and I had a deal," Tommy continued. "He helps me with a job. I keep his girlfriend safe. But then I find out Marcus here has been stalking the same girl. Small world, right? So I figured, why not kill 2 birds? Get Jake to help me rob this place, and let Marcus's crew take care of the Sarah problem afterward. Clean. Simple. You set me up, Jake's voice. Flat. Cold. I gave you a choice. You chose wrong. More sounds. Scuffling. Someone hitting the ground. I couldn't see what was happening. Couldn't see if Jake was hurt, but I could hear Marcus's friends laughing. Could hear Tommy giving orders. Could hear Jake breathing hard, trying to stay calm. And I realized waiting for the cops meant letting Jake die. Because even if they arrived in 5 minutes, that was 5 minutes too long. I pulled out my phone. Not the burner. My regular phone. Opened the camera app, hit record, and stepped through the door. The warehouse was massive, empty except for old machinery and scattered debris. In the center, illuminated by a single hanging light, stood 5 men. Tommy Vega, smaller than I'd imagined, but with eyes that held nothing human. Jake on his knees, blood running from his nose. Marcus and 2 other guys I recognized from the diner, one holding a tire iron, and standing off to the side, a 5th man I didn't recognize, holding a gun. Nobody noticed me at first. I was just a shadow in the doorway. Just another piece of darkness. Then I spoke. Marcus. Every head turned. Marcus squinted at me, confused. Then recognition dawned. Sarah? What the hell are you doing here? Funny, I was going to ask you the same thing. I kept my phone up, recording everything, every face, every weapon, every word. Tommy smiled. It was the worst thing I'd ever seen. Jake's girlfriend. In the flesh. This is perfect. Now we don't have to hunt you down later. You're not going to touch her, Jake said. His voice was steady despite the blood, despite being on his knees. Rodriguez is listening to everything. The cops are on their way. You've got maybe 3 minutes before this place is surrounded. Then I guess we better make this quick. Tommy nodded to the guy with the gun. Shoot him, then her. We'll be gone before anyone. Stop. My voice cut through the warehouse. Stronger than I felt. Clearer than I should have been capable of. You're all on camera. I held up my phone. Live streaming to 3 different platforms. Shooting us doesn't make this go away. It just adds murder to whatever charges you're already facing. I was lying. I wasn't live streaming anything. But they didn't know that. Tommy's smile faltered. You're bluffing. Am I? Check Twitter. My handle's right there. I pointed to my phone. Sarah at Ruby's, trending in Phoenix right now with the hashtag warehouse hostage. The cops aren't just coming because of gunshots anymore. They're coming because 5,000 people are watching you hold us at gunpoint. Complete silence. Then Marcus lunged at me. I didn't think, just moved. Stepped sideways, grabbed an old pipe from the debris pile, swung it hard. It connected with Marcus's shoulder. He went down screaming. Everything exploded into chaos. Jake surged to his feet, hit the guy with the gun before he could react. The gun went flying. Tommy ran for the back exit. Marcus's other friend tried to grab me, but I was already moving, running toward Jake, toward the only person who mattered. Sarah, get out, Jake shouted. Not without you. Then the sirens arrived, not distant anymore. Right outside. Tires screeching, doors slamming, police shouting commands. Rodriguez burst through the front entrance with 4 cops behind him. Guns drawn, professional, fast, everyone on the ground. Now. Tommy froze halfway to the exit. Marcus's friends dropped. The guy with the gun put his hands up. And Jake stood there with blood on his face and relief in his eyes. Sarah, Rodriguez said, spotting me. I told you to stay put. I had to. I know. He looked at my phone, still recording. Please tell me you actually streamed that. No, but I got everything on video. Good enough. The arrests happened fast. Miranda rights. Handcuffs. Marcus crying about how he didn't do anything. Tommy silent and calculating even in cuffs. The guy with the gun claiming it wasn't his. Rodriguez pulled Jake and me aside while the cops processed everyone. You're both insane, he said. You know that, right? Did it work? Jake asked. Tommy confessed to extortion and conspiracy to commit robbery on tape. Marcus and his crew are on video assaulting you and threatening Sarah. The guy with the gun has 3 outstanding warrants. Yeah, it worked. But Jake, your parole officer is going to have questions. I'll answer them. And Sarah, Rodriguez turned to me. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen. Probably both. I wasn't going to let him die alone. You could have died together. Better than living apart. An ambulance arrived. Paramedics checked Jake over, cleaned his face, said his nose might be broken, but he'd live. They tried to check me too, but I waved them off. I wasn't hurt. Not physically. Officer Delgado, Jake's parole officer, showed up an hour later, looked at the scene, looked at Jake, shook his head. Brennan, you have the worst luck of anyone I've ever supervised. Sir, but Delgado held up a hand. You also just helped us arrest a violent ex-con planning armed robbery, shut down a harassment operation, and recovered an illegal weapon. Rodriguez vouched for you, said you've been cooperating from the start. So here's what's going to happen. You're coming in Monday morning. We're going to review everything. And if your story checks out, and I mean every detail, then this goes in your file as a positive. You used your knowledge of criminal behavior to prevent crime. That's rehabilitation. That's exactly what parole is supposed to look like. Jake's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. You're still on thin ice. But you're not going back to Huntsville tonight. When the cops finally cleared us to leave, the sun was coming up. Jake and I walked back toward his apartment in silence, both too exhausted to talk, too shaken to process what had just happened. Halfway there, he stopped, turned to face me. You saved my life, he said. You saved mine first. Sarah, I'm serious. You walked into a warehouse with armed men. You bluffed them with a fake live stream. You hit Marcus with a pipe. I couldn't lose you, I interrupted. I've already lost too much in my life. I wasn't going to lose you too. He pulled me into his arms, held me like I might disappear, and I held him back like he might break. I love you, he whispered into my hair. I don't know when it happened. Maybe that first night. Maybe yesterday. But I love you and I'm terrified of what that means. It means you're stuck with me, I said. For however long you'll have me? Forever? That works. We stood there on the empty street as Phoenix woke up around us. Two broken people who'd somehow found each other in the wreckage. Two people who'd chosen to fight instead of run. And for the first time since this all started, I felt something close to hope. The trial took 6 weeks to put together. 6 weeks of depositions and evidence reviews and lawyers asking me the same questions in 17 different ways. 6 weeks of watching Jake meet with his parole officer twice weekly, proving over and over that he was cooperating, that he was clean, that he was trying. Marcus took a plea deal. 6 months for stalking and harassment, 18 months for assault, plus 3 years cost probation. His friends got similar deals. The prosecutors were more interested in Tommy Vega anyway. Tommy with his prison connections and his robbery plans and his complete lack of remorse. Tommy went to trial, refused every plea offer. Sat in that courtroom with cold eyes while they played the recording of him threatening my family, while they showed evidence of the weapons. While Rodriguez testified about his history of violence in Huntsville, the jury deliberated for 40 minutes, guilty on all counts, 15 years, no parole eligibility for at least 10. I watched them take him away in handcuffs. Watched him look at Jake one last time with something like respect in his eyes. Like he finally understood that Jake had beaten him not with violence or cunning, but with something Tommy would never have, the courage to choose differently. Jake's parole review happened 3 weeks later. Officer Delgado presented everything. The cooperation, the evidence gathering, the role Jake had played in stopping multiple crimes. And then he said something I'll never forget. Jake Brennan came to me 6 months ago, fresh out of Huntsville. I've supervised 200 parolees in my career. Most of them re-offend within a year. But Jake did something different. He built a life, got 2 jobs, stayed clean. And when his past came back to threaten him, he didn't run. He didn't fall back into old patterns. He used what he learned in prison to prevent crime instead of commit it. That's what the parole system is supposed to do. That's rehabilitation. The board voted unanimously to reduce Jake's parole from 5 years to 2, and to commend him formally for his cooperation. When we walked out of that hearing, Jake's hands were shaking. 2 years, he whispered. I thought I'd have 5 years of checking in, 5 years of restrictions, 5 years of proving myself. You still have to prove yourself. Just for less time. I can do 2 years. I can do anything for 2 years. He called his sister that night, put her on speaker so I could hear, Rachel, it's done. Tommy's locked up. Marcus is gone. The parole board reduced my time. Her voice came through, young and strong and full of tears. Jake. Oh my God. I was so scared. I know. I'm sorry. I never wanted you to worry. I'm not worried anymore. I'm proud of you. Do you hear me? I'm so proud of you. Jake's face crumpled. For the first time since I'd known him, he cried. Real tears. Not the controlled, careful emotion he usually allowed himself. Just raw relief and love, and 8 years of carrying weight alone. I love you, Rach. He managed. I love you too. And Jake? Bring Sarah next time you visit. I want to meet her. Yeah? Yeah. Anyone who runs into a warehouse to save my idiot brother is family as far as I'm concerned. 2 weeks later, we drove to Tucson to meet Rachel. She was exactly like her photo. Bright eyes, easy smile, nursing student scrubs, and a hug that nearly broke my ribs. Thank you, she whispered to me while Jake carried our bags inside her apartment. Thank you for seeing him, for fighting for him, for not giving up when everyone else would have. He did the same for me. I know. That's why you're perfect for each other. We spent the weekend together, ate too much food, told stories, laughed until we cried. And I watched Jake with his sister, the way he relaxed around her, the way he smiled without that careful control, the way he let himself just be happy. And I thought, this is what he needed all along. Not to prove he wasn't dangerous, just to remember he was human. The locksmith company Jake worked for offered him full-time employment, benefits, health insurance, a raise. His boss, a gruff older man named Ed, who'd hired Jake knowing his record, pulled him aside one day while I was waiting for Jake to finish his shift. You're the best I've got, Brennan, Ed said. Most reliable, most skilled. Customers request you specifically. I don't care what you did 10 years ago. I care about who you are now, and you're someone I'm proud to have on my team. Jake looked like he might cry again. Thank you, sir. Stop calling me sir. Makes me feel old. And bring Sarah to the company barbecue next month. Everyone wants to meet the woman who saved your sorry ass. We moved in together 3 months after the trial. A real apartment, 2 bedrooms in case Rachel wanted to visit, a kitchen with appliances that actually worked, windows that locked properly, a balcony that overlooked the city. The first night, we sat out there with cheap wine and cheaper pizza, watching Phoenix light up against the desert sky. Do you regret it? Jake asked quietly. Everything that happened? The danger I brought into your life? No. Sarah. I mean it. I looked at him. Before you, I was just surviving. Working doubles at a diner, living in a crappy apartment where nobody cared if I lived or died. Going through the motions. You showed me what it means to actually fight for something. To choose something. To believe I deserved more than just surviving. You always deserved more. Maybe. But I didn't believe it until I met someone who'd lost everything and still chose to rebuild. You taught me that second chances aren't given, Jake. They're earned. Every day, every choice, every moment you decide to be better than you were. He took my hand. Those scarred, careful hands that had fixed my lock and my life in the same night. I love you, he said. I don't think I'll ever stop saying that. After 8 years of nobody wanting to hear anything I had to say, I can't stop telling you. Then don't stop. I'll never get tired of hearing it. I love you, Sarah Chen. I love that you didn't run when everyone told you to. I love that you hit Marcus with a pipe. I love that you fake live-streamed a hostage situation. I love that you're insane and brave and you chose me when I didn't think anyone ever would. I love you too, Jake Brennan. I love that you showed up when I needed help. I love that you told me the truth even when it could have cost you everything. I love that you're building something real out of nothing. I love that you taught me what redemption actually looks like. He kissed me then, soft and careful and full of promise. So what now? He asked. Now we live, we work, we build, we prove every single person who doubted us wrong. Together? Always together. 6 months later, Jake got a letter. Official state seal. I watched his hands shake as he opened it. What is it? I asked. My parole officer. He's recommending early termination of my parole. Says I've met every requirement, exceeded expectations, stayed clean, contributed to my community. If the board approves, I'll be done in 6 months instead of 18. Jake, I know. You'll actually be free. Yeah. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. For the first time in 10 years, I'll actually be free. The board approved it. 6 months later, Jake Brennan walked into the parole office for the last time, signed his final papers, shook Officer Delgado's hand. You did it, Brennan, Delgado said. You're one of the rare ones. Don't waste it. I won't. And take care of that girl. She's the reason you're here. I know. I plan to. We celebrated that night. Nothing fancy. Just dinner at Ruby's Diner where we'd first met. Linda waited on us, rolled her eyes, and said, I still think you're both crazy, but I'm glad you proved me wrong. Me too, I said. Jake proposed 3 months later, not with a fancy ring or a romantic setup, just sitting on our balcony on a random Tuesday, drinking coffee, watching the sunset. Marry me, he said. What? Marry me. I know it's fast. I know I'm still figuring out who I am outside of prison. But I know I want to figure it out with you. I know I want to wake up next to you for the rest of my life. I know I want to build something that lasts with someone who understands what it means to rebuild. You don't have a ring. I'll get you one. The best I can afford. But I need to know. Will you say yes? I looked at this man. This bald, tattooed, scarred, beautiful man who'd walked into my life to fix a lock and somehow fixed everything else too. Yes, I said. 1,000 times yes. We got married 6 months later. Small ceremony, Rachel as maid of honor, Rodriguez walking me down the aisle since my dad was gone, Ed from the Locksmith company officiating because he had one of those online minister certificates, Officer Delgado in the audience because Jake wanted him to see that happy endings were possible. At the reception, held in the backyard of Rodriguez's house because we were still saving money, Jake gave a speech. I spent 8 years believing I didn't deserve a second chance, he said, believing that one mistake defined me forever. But Sarah taught me something important. She taught me that redemption isn't about erasing your past. It's about building something better on top of it. It's about choosing, every single day, to be more than your worst moment. And it's about finding someone who sees all your scars and loves you not in spite of them, but because of what they taught you. He looked at me. Sarah, I'm not the man I was when I went to prison, but I'm also not the man I was when I got out. I'm better, stronger, braver, because you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, because you fought for me when I thought I wasn't worth fighting for, because you loved me when loving me was dangerous and difficult and probably stupid. Everyone laughed. So thank you for seeing me, for choosing me, for building this life with me. I promise to spend every day earning the trust you've given me. I promise to protect you, to support you, to love you with everything I am and everything I'm still becoming. I was crying. Everyone was crying. Even Rodriguez had to wipe his eyes. Later that night, alone in our apartment, Jake held me close. I never thought I'd get this, he whispered. A wife, a home, a life. I thought prison was the end, but it was just the beginning. Of what? Of learning who I actually am, of finding you, of understanding what freedom actually means. What does it mean? It means choosing to stay when you could run. It means loving someone enough to let them see everything broken in you. It means building something real even when the world says you don't deserve it. Freedom isn't about not having consequences. It's about choosing what you do with them. I kissed him, long and slow and full of love. Then let's keep choosing, I said. Every day. For the rest of our lives. Deal. And we did. We built a life from broken pieces, proved everyone wrong, showed that second chances are real if you're brave enough to fight for them, showed that love can survive judgment and danger and impossible odds. 5 years later, Jake opened his own locksmith business. 10 years later, we bought a house. 15 years later, we had a daughter we named Maria, after the woman who'd believed in Jake when nobody else did. And every night, I still thank whatever force of the universe sent a bald, tattooed ex-convict to fix my lock and change my life. Because he didn't just open my door that night. He opened my eyes to what redemption actually looks like. And I've never looked back. If you made it to the end of this story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from, and click the yellow bell to subscribe to the channel and support us. Keep the adventure going by clicking on the suggested video on your screen.